Welcome. My name's Amy Vaccaro and today we're going to explore some pregnancy yoga. So you might be wondering what I'm sitting on. This is a bolster and I would highly encourage you to get a hold of a bolster if you can. They're a really great item to have at home and they can be really useful, especially after you've had your baby, for being able to sit on the floor and make sure that your lower back is really well supported, but also while you're pregnant to be able to find comfortable positions for your yoga practice while you're on the floor as well. The other thing that will be really useful for our practice today are blocks. Now, blocks are really easy to come by. You can get them from Kmart, Big W, Aldi, lots of places have them and they're really cheap. Blocks are awesome for making our arms longer. And of course, as our pregnancy progresses, our arms get further and further away from the floor. So, this is my house that we're practicing in today. So welcome to my house as well. You need to be mindful when you're practicing pregnancy yoga to just be really gentle with your body. Pregnancy yoga isn't a time for expanding on your yoga practice. It's a time to just be in a nice, quiet, gentle space within your yoga practice. And of course, within yoga, we're always practicing what we call ahimsa, which means non-violence, not just to yourself, but to everyone around you. So when you are practicing ahimsa from a pregnancy yoga perspective, if there's anything in the practice that feels uncomfortable or painful, you stop doing it and you have a break and you breathe and you relax and you enjoy. A lot of women will find during their pregnancy that their pelvis becomes a little bit unstable, especially during the later stages of pregnancy, especially with the pubic symphysis. This bone right at the very front can become quite unstable and quite painful. If you are noticing that you are getting a lot of pain with your yoga practice, you might need to stop practicing and definitely get advice from a physio or from your GP as well, or your midwife, just to make sure that you are practicing safely. So let's get started. So we're going to start in child's pose, ideally supported child's pose. So I'm going to use my bolster here. If you don't have a bolster and in between getting a bolster, you might like to use a few pillows stacked up here, nice thick pillows. So big toes together, knees out to the side, making sure there's enough space between your belly and the bolster, and coming gently all the way down to rest on the bolster with your head turned to one side. And just resting your body here. Give me a little wiggle if you need to. And just noticing your breath. Just noticing how your breath moves in and out of your body right now without changing it. Noticing how your body feels today. And then from here, we're going to start to manipulate the breath. So starting to move the breath in through the nose and out through the nose. And then starting to deepen the breath further still. So on the breath in, sending the breath all the way down to the hara, which is a point just below your belly button. Aiming for expansion of that point on the breath in. And on the breath out, just letting the belly relax back towards your spine. As your pregnancy progresses, it will become more and more difficult to find expansion in your belly with the breath in, but the intention is always the same, sending the breath all the way down to your baby on the breath in. And releasing the breath back out through the nose. You may be able to send the breath further still, all the way down into the pelvis. So each time you take a breath in, you might notice the pelvic floor relaxing out and away. And each time your breath moves back out, The pelvic floor relaxes back in, back towards its neutral point. And don't be worried if you can't find the breath moving that deeply just yet. It's a practice. Keep practicing, sending the intention. A big, deep belly breath all the way down to your baby. And turning your head to the opposite side if you haven't done so already, and just feeling into the opposite side of your neck. Continuing that nice, big, deep belly breath. And while you're here, breathing deeply away, you might like to consider an intention for your practice today. It's always worthwhile to set an intention for your practice that is bigger or outside of you, or perhaps inside of you right now. We always set our intention for our yoga practice for somebody who will benefit from you being your most calm, healthy, vibrant self. And 3 more deep rounds of breath here. And then from here, we're going to start to move. So start to come up into a tabletop position. So we move the bolster, if you have one, out of the way and just into a place where you can reach it whenever you need to. We're finding our hands underneath our shoulders and our knees underneath our hips. And from here, we just start with a little tail wag. So we're aiming to find a snaky movement through our spine and just noticing how our spine is moving today. Noticing the movement of your hips from side to side. And just noticing whether there are any parts of your spine that feel a little bit stuck. So just moving gently and slowly with those parts. Sending your breath in that direction. And just working out those parts of your spine that feel stuck, and to enable them to flow a little bit more easily. And then from here, coming back to that central point, we're going to work around our wrists now. So we're going to start in clockwise directions, working around, slowly, slowly. Now, if your wrists are a little bit sore, you can send your weight backwards a little bit, which will take less pressure off your wrists. If your wrists are really, really sore, you can just skip this part altogether and just stay here in a nice neutral tabletop position. So round and round we go. We're going to start to make that movement a little bit bigger and incorporate more joints here. So elbows, shoulders, find that snaky movement through your spine. Start to come back towards that child's pose position. Don't be worried about what this movement looks like. It's all about the feeling. You might get a few snap, crackle and pops as you're going around and around. And remember your breath as you're moving here round and round and round. It should feel good. And 2 more times around. And releasing, coming back to that central point again, knees underneath your hips and hands underneath your shoulders. From here, we're going to work towards a stabilizing position. So we're going to take our right leg long with our toes facing down. This is the start point. Now, don't worry if you can't get that leg off the floor. We can always keep the toes down if you need to. And don't worry, we're not aiming for height here, we're aiming for length. So it's like you're about to step onto the wall behind you. Thinking about the inner thigh on that long leg rotating up towards the ceiling, which means that your big toe might slightly start to shift in towards the center of the mat. So we're also thinking about being able to rest a cup of tea on our back here. So trying to make sure that our hips are nice and square. So if I turn on side on here, just noticing those hips being nice and square, being able to find that squareness through your hips if you can feel it. So finding your breath here, and each breath you take in, thinking about your belly, creating space for your breath to arrive. Belly expanding on the breath in, and then on the exhale, thinking about moving your baby up towards your spine. If you are feeling really strong and stable today, you might like to take your left hand long. So opposite arm, opposite leg, thumb facing up towards the ceiling. Be mindful though of the tension that you might create between your shoulder and your ear on the left side. So finding your breath again, in through the nose and out through the nose. Finding that expansion of the belly on the breath in and contraction of the belly on the breath out. And then from here, we're going to release that hand down. I'm going to swing back around to the front again. And from here, you're going to take that foot, right foot out to the side. So I'll just move my bolster out of the way, move my blocks out of the way there. So right foot out to the side, hands remaining underneath your shoulders. On the breath in, we're just going to rock forward. And on the exhale, we're going to rock back again. Inhale, rocking forward. Exhale, rocking back. Inhale forward. Exhale back. And one more time, inhaling forward. And exhaling back. From here, coming back to that central point, walking hands back towards your knees. We're coming to bring our torso up. So moving slowly and with control. Just be mindful of your blood pressure as you move here. Start to engage through inner thighs, start to engage through your bottom. And then from here, hands to heart space, and just check in with your body, finding nice straight spine, finding stability here. Find your breath again, in through your nose and out through your nose. And then from here, you can choose to stay with your hands at heart space, or if you want to take it further, take your breath all the way up to the ceiling. And then on the exhale, we're going to tip towards that straight leg. So tip towards the right side. So the hand can come down towards the leg. We're finding a nice long energy line opening up all the way from the tips of our fingers on the left right down to the knee on the floor. So finding your breath here, in through the nose and out through the nose. Make sure there's minimal tension between the ear and the shoulder on that left side of the hand that's rising for the ceiling. You can choose to look down towards the toe or out to the side or up to the ceiling, whatever works for you. And just enjoying your breath and that openness through the front side of your body. And then from here, we take a breath in to reach. And on the exhale, we're going to find the floor with that left hand. All the way down, slowly, slowly. If the floor's a long way away here, you can use a block if you have one. Otherwise, finding the floor, reaching up and over with our right hand. Move slowly and with control again. Moving slowly gives your body time to opt out if it needs to. So we find our breath again. We find that long line of energy opening up all the way from the tips of our right fingers right down to the tips of our right toes. Finding that breath, moving in through your nose, out through your nose. Trying also to find the breath moving deeply into your belly as you breathe each time. Don't worry if you can't get it to breathe that deeply. It takes time and practice. It's okay. And 2 more rounds of breath here. And then from here, we're going to walk those hands forward. Again, move slowly, slowly. Give your body time to get there. Hands walking slowly towards the front of the mat. We're working towards lizard pose. So this right foot is heeling and toeing its way towards the top right corner of your mat, if you're using one. So the toes are turned out to the side, and your foot is as far wide as your mat is. So you might notice that we have found our back knee and hip are stacked here. What we're aiming to do is to have our foot far enough forward at the front that our back hip can drift forward and our hands can find the floor. Now, a lot of people finding their hands on the floor quite difficult. So again, we can use a block here. Our block makes our arms longer, and most women in pregnancy will find using a block much more comfortable than having their hands on the floor. Some women are exceptionally bendy, and that's totally fine. If your hands are comfortable on the floor, then you can keep them there. If they're not, no point straining yourself trying to get your hands to the floor. So finding your breath here, in through your nose and out through your nose again. So you might find that this pose, lizard pose, is quite intense. So just be aware of the sensation that is present all the way through your hips and inner thighs. Find your breath and breathe all the way down into that sensation, and also notice the thoughts that are popping into your head in regards to the sensation. Notice whether they are good, useful, helpful thoughts, or whether they are unuseful, unhelpful thoughts. Just notice. It's within the noticing that we can then begin to decide which thoughts we're going to keep and which ones we're not going to keep anymore. Continuing to breathe here. Two more rounds of breath. And then from here, we're going to walk our right hand up onto our right knee. So you can choose to use your block again here, or you can choose to get rid of it. We're going to take a breath in, look past our knee and up towards the ceiling. And on the exhale, look back down again. Inhale, look up. Exhale, down. Inhale, looking up. Exhale, down. And one more time, inhale up. And exhaling down. From here, we're going to walk that foot back towards the center of the mat, not too far, but toes are turned out forward this time. And from here, you can be using your block if you need to, or not. You can use just your hands on the floor. We're going to take a breath in to straighten through that leg, and an exhale to bend and look up. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, bend. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, bend. And one more time, inhaling to straighten. And exhaling, bending. And from here, we're going to take that right foot behind us back to our child's pose. So big toes together, knees out to the side. This time we're going to use no bolster. So we're aiming to walk our hands forward and aiming to find our head on the mat. However, if your head is a long way away from the mat, you can stack your hands one on top of the other, or stack your fists one on top of the other and rest your head there. Or if you have a block, you can use your block to rest there. So finding your breath in your child's pose and just releasing, letting everything go here. In your child's pose, you have an opportunity to check in with both sides of your body. So just checking in with the right and the left side of your body, knowing that we've only attended to one side, our right side so far. So breathing here all the way down into your belly, finding that hara right down where your baby is. Expanding that point on the inhale. And letting that point relax on the exhale. And then seeing whether you can send your breath even further all the way down into the pelvis. So each time you take a breath in, noticing the pelvic floor relaxing and expanding. And each time you breathe out, just letting your pelvic floor, just like your belly, retract back towards the center. Back to that neutral point. You can choose to stay here breathing in your child's pose, or if you want to, you can come for a little flow. So if you're flowing, we're coming up to find just a mini plank. So hands are underneath our shoulders and trying to find a nice long spine here. We're working on inner creases of elbows facing towards the front of the mat. Breathing and noticing how you can sink yourself down into your shoulders, or you can lift yourself up and out of your shoulders. It's just your shoulders that are moving, sinking down and lifting up again. So what we want to find on the breath in is a lift up and out of our shoulders, and then on the exhale, a little micro bend, or as bending as much as you want to through your elbows, just as much as comfortable, like a tricep push-up. Take a breath back in and exhale your way back towards your child's pose position, just briefly. And then we come back up to find our tabletop again. So repeating all of that on the second side. So check in again with your waggy tail and just notice how your spine is feeling now that you've done some work on the right side. So remember your breath here. And then from here, we're going to find that movement around our wrists. So this time we're going in an anti-clockwise direction. So just notice how your wrists are feeling, and remember that you can keep your weight back further if you need to, still creating that space around your wrists. So round and round we go. And then we start to make that movement bigger, incorporating more joints, incorporating our spine, incorporating that round and round, bendy, weird kind of movement. Snap, crackle, and pop. Noticing any difference between the right and left side as you move. And then coming back to find that central point again. Knees underneath your hips, hands underneath your shoulders, redressing yourself if you need to. And then from here, we're going to come to find the left leg long, as if you're about to step onto a wall behind you. So thinking about, again, that inner thigh rotating up towards the ceiling, perhaps noticing that that big toe will slightly shift in towards the center, toes facing down towards the mat. Thinking about being able to rest a cup of tea on that sacrum, that bone that's just above the top of your butt crack. And then if you choose to, taking your right arm long this time, thumb facing up towards the ceiling, making sure that there's minimal tension here between your shoulder and your ear. So finding your breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Notice your eye gaze is just down in front of you. And I'm choosing to have my eye gaze just down in front of me so that I don't topple over. Breathing deeply all the way down into your baby, down into the hara, that point just below your belly button, so that each time you breathe in, you're finding some expansion there, and each time you breathe out, you find your strength, baby, moving up towards your spine, hugging your baby in. And then from here, we're releasing our hand down to the mat again. We're taking that left foot out to the side this time. Just notice a bit of fluff on my knee. And then from here, we take a breath forward and exhale, shift back, feeling into that inner thigh on the left, breathing in, exhale back, inhale forward, exhale back. One more time, inhale forward and exhaling back. Coming all the way back to center now, we're going to start to walk our hands back towards that knee, starting to press down through that foot, squeeze inner thighs together, engage through your glutes, and start to make your way up. Be mindful of your blood pressure as you move. Go slowly, move with control. Your head is the last thing to come up. Find that nice long spine, hands to heart space, and just hang out here for a couple of rounds of breath, just to make sure that you're feeling okay while you're here. And then from here, we're going to take a breath all the way up to the ceiling if you're feeling okay. And on the exhale, we're going to tip towards that straight left leg, letting your left hand just drop down towards the leg and opening all the way up down that right side of the body from the tips of the fingers right down to the knee. Finding your breath here, in through your nose and out through your nose. Again, being mindful of any tension that you're creating between the ear and the shoulder on that right side. So you might notice a difference between the right and left sides as you're moving here. Just be aware of it. And then from here, take a breath in, and on the exhale, we're going to find our right hand right down next to the mat here on the floor. And get that block out of the way, bringing your left hand all the way up and over. So opening up that line of energy all the way down from the tips of the fingers on the left hand, right down to the tips of the toes on the left foot. Finding your breath here, in through the nose and out through the nose. Again, being mindful of the tension in the neck. You can choose to look down towards those fingers on the floor, or out to the side, or up to those fingers, reaching for the ceiling. And 2 more rounds of breath here. Summertime in Australia, blowflies on my window. Don't know if you can hear that, probably not. There's a big giant blowy on my window. Hands creeping forward, and from here we're coming to lizard pose. So sending that left foot to the top left corner of your mat, and again, if you need to use your block, and you did so on the first side, use your block again here. So making sure that this back hip is drifting forward of the back knee, and also that the knee and the ankle are stacked on this front foot. If you're finding that this knee is coming forward of the ankle, you need to walk the foot forward. And it might take a little bit of maneuvering, but make sure that the foot comes forward so that the knee is behind or on top of the ankle here. Grounding down and finding your breath. You might notice that there's quite a difference between your right and left side. It's really normal. Humans, although they look symmetrical, really aren't most of the time. There's tightness often on one side of the pelvis and not on the other. So just notice what is happening in your body today. It might be a regular pattern for you. So this is my right side. My right side is much tighter than my left all the time. It's just the way I am. So I just work with that. Find your breath here and breathe all the way down into your pelvis, all the way down into your hips. And again, intense pose, lizard pose. So just be mindful of the thoughts that come with the intensity. Notice whether they're useful and helpful or not. Remember to breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. And also remember that any of the poses we come to are always working towards comfortable discomfort. So if anything becomes uncomfortable, that's when we come out of the pose or we modify the pose so that it becomes more comfortable again. Finding that breath. 2 more rounds of breath here. And then from here, either keeping the right hand on the block or moving it down to the floor, we're shifting that left hand up onto the left knee. We take a breath in, look past the knee and up towards the ceiling. And on the exhale, looking down towards the mat. Inhale up towards the ceiling. Exhaling down. Inhale up. Exhale down. One more time, inhale, looking up. And exhaling down. From here, the hands come back down either to the block or the mat. Walking that foot back a little more centrally, toes facing forward this time. We take a breath in and we straighten. And then we exhale, look up, bending the knee. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, bend. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, bend. And one more time, inhaling to straighten. And exhaling, bending. From here, we're going to take that foot behind us again for our child's pose. So slowly creeping that foot behind you, toes together, knees out to the side, letting your bottom drop back towards your heels. Move slowly and with control, just settling all the way down into your child's pose. Little wriggle here just to make sure your spine is okay. Head dropping down towards the mat if it can. If you can't reach your head, you remember you can use your hands, you can use your fists, or you can use your block to rest your head. And just find your breath here, in through your nose and out through your nose. Two more rounds of breath here. So you can choose to stay here in your child's pose, just gently breathing and uncoiling, or you can come for your flow again. So walking your hands forward, coming up to find your knees underneath your hips, a kind of a plank position, nice long straight spine, hands underneath your shoulders, fingers facing forward, lift up and out of your shoulders on the breath in, and then exhale, little tricep, kind of a push up, and inhale back up towards your child's pose. From here we're going to work our way into downward facing dog. Now downward facing dog isn't for everyone in pregnancy. So if you are finding that you have lots of reflux or heartburn, or you're vomiting a lot in your pregnancy, it's probably a good idea to avoid downward dog. Or you can practice downward dog at the wall, where you just stand, walk your hands down the wall, shoulder width, and then just walk your feet backwards until your head can come down through your shoulders, and you can rest there in your downward dog against the wall. Otherwise, coming to your downward dog, so we're walking our hands forward and just sending your body weight forward, tucking your toes under, keeping your knees bent, just lifting your tailbone for the ceiling. That's the first place to start. From here, check in, make sure your hands are where they need to be, shoulder width. Index fingers are facing forward, and it's like you're tiger gripping the mat here. Pull yourself out of your wrists and push your chest back towards your thighs. You might like to give your tail a little bit of a wag here, aiming your tailbone for the ceiling. Finding a nice long straight spine here. Looking down towards your feet, and you want to find your feet wide enough to be able to fit your belly somewhere between your thighs. And then from here, you might like to start to walk your heels out one at a time, just lengthening through the back of each leg, slowly, slowly. And just feeling into the back of your body. And then from here, you're going to choose to walk your hands towards your feet, or your feet towards your hands, to come to a forward fold position. So don't bring your head up when you get there just yet. So I'm going to walk my feet towards my hands, but equally your hands could go towards your feet. And just hold here in your forward fold. So in your forward fold, you want to make sure that there's at least a fist to 2 fist widths between your feet. So there's enough room for your belly to fit between your thighs. You also want to make sure that your knees are nice and bent here, so that you are able to get your belly touching your thighs. You might need to have your hands at your knees to start here, or you can have your elbows at your knees to start equally. And then from here, you start to grow your tailbone up towards the ceiling. So a little wag of your tail here to find that. If you had a lot of mobility, it wouldn't matter if your hands were on the floor. If you had your block, you could also use your block, either on the short side or the long side. But all we're aiming to do here is to work on decompressing the spine just gently. So find your breath here, notice how it flows while you're hanging upside down. Starting to open out through the back half of your body, just like we did in our downward facing dog. And then from here, if your hands aren't already at your knees, bring them there. We're going to start to bend through our knees, let our tailbone drop down towards the floor. We're working our way to standing. So slowly, slowly growing tall through your spine. letting each vertebra stack one on top of the other as you start to arrive towards your standing. Move as slowly as you possibly can. Give your blood pressure time to get to standing. Take a breath in as you start to arrive to the top. Bring your shoulders up with you on the breath in. And then on the exhale, letting your shoulders drop down, arms drop down by your side, and find yourself in a nice standing position. We call this Tadasana. So by the time we get to our standing position, there's a little bit of redressing that needs to occur. So just checking in with your feet, picking up through your toes, placing big toe down, little toe, and the rest of your toes, making sure there's that fist to 2 fist widths distance between your feet. Pick up through your kneecaps, and then from here, becoming aware of your pelvis. So the pubic bone at the front and tailbone deep in the back here. So with your tailbone, you just want to drift it out behind you. Just notice how drifting that tailbone out behind you creates a curve in your lower back. From here, we want to start to shift the pelvis. So when you think about the tailbone coming under and the pubic bone moving up towards the ceiling. So we start to create some strength here through the central part, through the core, and also in the pelvic floor. So it's like you're trying to hug your baby in towards your spine. And then from here, we let our tailbone release, let everything relax. Little wag of your tail, and then tucking tailbone underneath, pubic bone moving up towards the ceiling, hugging baby in towards your spine, switching everything on here. From here, we want to find that central point where things feel switched on but comfortable. So relaxing into that neutral point. From here, we grow tall through our spine again. So it's the same movement that we did while we're in our tabletop position, except we're working against gravity this time. So just moving your spine from side to side, noticing how it's feeling, noticing how your spine likes to move forward and back. Notice how your spine also likes to twist a little from side to side. And then from here, pick up and release through your shoulders a few times. Pick up and release. One more time, picking up and releasing here. Just letting your arms hang heavy by your side. And then from here, we're going to take a breath all the way in. And exhale, hands down through center line. One more time, breath all the way in. And then from here, just letting your left hand drop down, palm facing down, and finding a stretch again through the right side. Inhale, reach with the left. Exhale, push down with the right. Inhale, reach up again. Exhale, release, push down. One more time, inhaling, reaching. Exhaling, releasing down. Breathing all the way up. Exhale, hands down through center line. We're going to work on our balance now. So picking up through the left heel. That would be your right heel. If you can, we're going to pick the knee all the way up. If you can't lift the foot, it's totally fine. We're going to turn that knee out to the side. So if your knee is lifted, turning it out to the side from here. So we're going to choose to either have your foot at your ankle, your foot at your calf, or if with your knee lifted, your foot is above the knee, bring it happily into the inner thigh here. Now you might find, this is your tree pose, you might find that your balance is really, really difficult while you're pregnant. It's totally normal. Keep the foot on the floor, and if you want to, here's one I prepared earlier, you can always use a chair here. So I'm going to turn the chair side on. So you could also practice your tree pose with your foot on the chair, whatever feels most comfortable for you. So from here, choosing your option, turning the knee out to the side, at the calf or up into the inner thigh here, hands to heart space, and just grounding down, finding your breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Just notice whether you have sent yourself off to the side a little bit with your foot, and if you have, just come back to that central point, working on pressing that leg against the foot and pressing the foot against the leg. If you want to practice a little more with your balance here, you could look up towards the ceiling. If you want a little further still, you can reach your arms for the ceiling and grow tall through your tree. Wonderful thing about trees is they sway around in the breeze and they also fall over. So if you're swaying around and falling over, it's totally normal. It's exactly what trees do. Hands coming back to the center, exhaling, hands down through center line. Pick up through that knee, take your feet nice and wide and just relax. So finding a twist here, twisting all the way from the toes all the way up to the top of your head. It's difficult to find comfortable twisting positions while you're pregnant. It's a nice one, nice flowing one to practice. Come back to center, find your Tadasana, your mountain pose again. Grow tall through your spine, ground down through your feet, close down through your eyes if you need to. What I didn't tell you on the first side is that it's very much more easy to practice your balance poses if you find a drishti, a spot on the floor that doesn't move, that's just in front of you, or equally a spot on the ceiling that doesn't move. And there you can focus your eye gaze and it will give you a much more easy balance. So practice that on this second side so you can feel the difference. So choosing to lift your left heel and either take that foot out to the side with the ankle resting, the foot resting on the ankle, or up into the calf, or if you did so on the first side, up into the inner thigh. It doesn't matter which one you choose, it's not important, or if you are using the chair, use the chair. From here, finding your breath again, find your drishti, that spot on the floor that doesn't move, and concentrate very intently there. And then from here, if you did so on the first side, you might like to challenge yourself by looking up towards the ceiling. And then you might like to reach your arms for the ceiling and open out your branches. Remember your breath, in through your nose and out through your nose. If you are wobbling around and falling, just notice the thoughts that pop in while those things are happening. Just notice whether they're useful, helpful thoughts or unhelpful, unuseful thoughts. Bringing hands back to center if they're not there already. Hands down through center line, resting at heart space. Picking that foot up and placing it back down on the floor and coming back to that twist. And then from here, keeping the feet quite wide, toes turned out. Get rid of that block. We're going to work on some pelvic rolls here. So we're going to start in a clockwise direction. And you're going to imagine your hips and your pelvis like a spoon stirring a big giant pot. And you want to try and get around to every single part of that pot, all the way around. So as you're moving here, I want you just to notice how your pelvis is feeling today, how your hips are, whether there are any parts of the circle that feel a little bit stuck and a little bit difficult. And just notice. Remember your breath, so perhaps a breath in on the way forward and a breath out on the way back. Just becoming really well acquainted with the way that your hips and pelvis move. Coming back to center, changing directions, back around in the opposite way. And coming back to center again. From here, we're going to work our way down into Malasana Yogic Squat. Now, it's a really intense pose. It's important that if you have anything like hemorrhoids or vulval varicosities or any prolapses or anything that is going to compromise your pelvis in any way, that you don't come down into this squat. Also, some people are just made to not be able to get into this place. It's just the direction that their hips rotate. So the first option is to take your feet quite wide, toes turned out to the side, knees tracking out over the top of your toes, and just taking your hands or your elbows to that point and just hanging out here, just a little rock from side to side, opening up through your pelvis and through your inner thighs here, and just hanging out here. The full pose is to take your feet wide, toes turned out, and then just to slowly, slowly make your way down into your Malasana. Now, for me, my cracky old knees, and because I've been doing a lot of walking lately, my hips and inner thighs are quite tight. So it can take me a little while to arrive into Malasana comfortably. So it might take a little bit of moving side to side in order to arrive here. Now, if you have never practiced Malasana before, or you don't practice it regularly, it might feel a little bit like death, and that's okay. We just find our breath. So the thing is, if you can breathe into the sensation, which is very intense, and just be mindful of the thoughts that track in through your mind, the more you breathe and the more that you just relax into the pose, the easier it becomes. But remember, we're always working with comfortable discomfort. So if you get to a point where it's uncomfortable discomfort, you come out, you just rest, okay? So this pose, Malasana, is a really nice, interesting position that you can explore if you are looking at second stage active birth positions. Squatting is a great way to encourage an open pelvis, but we need to remember that the majority of the time women in the Western world don't sit like this. In the East, they sit like this all the time. It's their normal. For us, it's not our normal. So if you are choosing to use active birth positions in your labour and birth, and you're thinking that squatting might be an option for you, it's really important to practice, to feel, to let your body be here regularly. So the other thing that you can explore in your squat position is to come out just gently, so hands forward, just shift your weight forward. And I'm going to show you how you can actually use the wall as your friend. So you can just find this exact same pose against the wall. So just bringing yourself into your squat position and using the wall behind you just to rest. And you can notice that with the wall supporting you, it's much easier to rest here in your squat position than it is holding yourself on the mat alone. The other thing that you can practice is sitting in this position with the couch. So if you could imagine the part of the couch where your calves go when you're sitting on the couch, you can rest your back there, and then your partner or significant person in your life can sit behind you, give you a little massage while you're here. Perhaps you watch a bit of telly and you practice these poses while you are just doing what you go about doing in your normal daily life. Watch a little bit of TV. So instead of reclining on the couch, you're in your active birth position, practicing at the same time as having a little bit of downtime. So gently moving your way out here and coming forward, slowly, slowly. We're just going to work our way into a kneeling position. Now again, if you've got any issues with your knees, kneeling like this can be very difficult. So you just choose a comfortable seated position. The other thing that you can do if you have a bolster is to bring the bolster between your heels and your bottom. It gives you a little bit more space to play with and takes that pressure off your knees. From here, we're just going to work our right arm across the body, a little stretch into that right arm. Remember your breath in through your nose and out through your nose. And then changing sides, sending the left arm across the body, reaching in. And then releasing, just taking hands to your shoulders, bringing your elbows together, opening all the way out. Breathe in, exhale. One more time, breathing in. Exhaling and back in the opposite direction, elbows together, opening out. Elbows together and opening. One more time, together and opening, releasing. And then from here, we're going to set up for your Shavasana. So if you have a bolster and a block, or 2 blocks, you can use a block or 2 here. set your bolster up on top like this, and then bring yourself into a reclined position, just to relax here. So you can have your knees bent, or you can have them straight, or if you wanted to, you could come to a Baddha Konasana, bound angle pose with feet together, knees out to the side. Whatever you choose, you need to be able to hold that position for 15 minutes while we do a meditation. So this is option 1. Option 2 is then to just be side lying. If you don't have a bolster, side lying, supporting yourself with cushions to create a comfortable place for your body to rest. So once you settle down into your chosen position, wiggle yourself into that position and ground yourself down comfortably, and then we will experience a 15-minute meditation in your Shavasana. Welcome. Today we're going to work on a tension releasing meditation. So find yourself in a comfortable position. You might like to be seated, or you might like to be lying down. If you're pregnant and you're lying down, lie down on your side if it's most comfortable. If you are seated, you are working on grounding your sit bones down into the chair that you're sitting in. Wiggle yourself to get comfortable and growing your spine tall towards the ceiling. Gently tucking your chin in towards your throat and just resting comfortably. From here, just letting your body sink into the chair. And then we start to bring awareness to our breathing. So just noticing your breath, the way it comes in, the way it goes out, and the spaces of your body that it starts to open as it's moving in and moving out. Notice whether your breath is fast or slow. Notice that as you start to become aware of your breath will automatically start to slow down. From here, we start to manipulate the breath, starting to move the breath in through the nose and back out through the nose again. And we're starting to deepen the breath. So as you start to breathe in, we're breathing the breath all the way down into the belly, and down into the hara, which is a central point just below your belly button. With each in-breath, observing the expansion of that space. The belly opens and expands to allow the breath to come in. And on the exhale, that point returns back towards your spine, and the breath comes back out through your nose. And breathing in through the nose, belly expands. And breathing back out through the nose, the belly contracts. Working on the continuation of that deep belly breath all the way down into the hara, that point just below your belly button. Expansion on the inhale and contraction on the exhale. And from here, we're bringing awareness to the muscles around our eyes. And we're starting to release the tension that's present there. So each time you exhale, just working on the release of tension around your eyes, letting the muscles all around your eyes relax. And notice that as the tension around your eyes starts to diminish, that the rest of your face starts to want to melt as well. And so each time you exhale, just letting the tension drain away from your face and your head. And we start to direct the tension release all the way down the body, moving the tension away from your neck and your throat, across both of your shoulders, and down each arm, upper arm, elbows, forearms, hands, fingers. Just letting the tension release each time you exhale, slowly melting. Coming back to the central part of your body and just letting the tension relax from your chest all the way down your spine at the back, down through your belly, buttocks and pelvis, down through your legs, upper legs, knees, lower legs, ankles, feet, toes. Each time you exhale, more and more tension is released. Melting more and more into the surface beneath you. Oftentimes, when our body becomes still, our mind becomes busy. Thoughts come in, things we need to do, things we've already done. It's normal. It's just what the mind does. So in order to calm the mind, we give it a job. We can give it a mantra. Mantra is just words that we repeat over and over, just to help to tie our puppy mind to the post, to get it to be still. One of the easiest mantras to remember is So Hum. It just means I am, and it sounds like your breath. So coming in on the inhale and hum going out on the exhale. So quietly repeating, just silently in your mind, so hum. So on the inhale and hum on the exhale. And while the mantra is repeating in your mind, more and more tension is being released from your body with each exhale. So hum. So hum. awareness coming back now to hands and feet. And breath. Just notice the flow of your breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Taking a deep breath into hands and feet and starting to bring some movement back there. Wriggle and stretch. Moving your body in whatever way feels comfortable to wake yourself back up again. But doing so in such a way so as not to spill the calm you've just generated. And when you're ready, slowly opening your eyes and coming back into your day.